what's up, people? It's the solarkidd, and this is the Other Side of the Sun podcast. And today I've got Brian DeGoede, formerly of Mood Phase 5. You also used to drum for Boomslang as well, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. When I moved to Cape Town, this is, as we begin the story, so thanks for having me. It's awesome. I don't do this kind of thing at all, so
It's
I'm
awesome
glad
to
that
have
you
you,
asked
man.
me. Thank you.
No, I'm really,
Yeah.
really glad to have you. I'll just tell you a little bit. Like Mood Phase 5 for me was a very, very big band because like it kind of embodied everything about the time and everything about the music that I really loved at that time. It was live. You had Deform slaying the bars there. You had Ernie just crushing the vocals, and then you guys on the band were just killing it, man.
And you were in Johannesburg at this time, or where did you?
I saw you guys live a few times. I saw at Carfax. Just to play the old Carfax and stuff. Yeah,
yes,
no, I was
yes.
I was studying sound engineering at the time.
Oh, you were? Okay.
So I used to be a very avid gigger. I was out a lot.
Yeah, cool. Those were the years where music, for me personally anyway, it was a full-time thing, but also where the music scene was kind of, there was something going on, it was post-apartheid. It was those, we started in 97, 98. So it was those years where there was still a lot of promise for anything really, and music was exciting at the time, Things have drastically changed, as we know, worldwide, with this whole lockdown and that kind of nonsense. But the music industry, I would say, is back the way it felt like when it changed from CD to digital MP3s, it feels like that kind of like nobody really knows what's going on, This is South Africa. I don't know how it is in the UK or anywhere else in the world, but it just seems like a kind of a weird time again,
I think like in the UK, well, I suppose, the whole industry as such not died, but it had to go through a serious transformation.
That's right, yeah.
When physicals started dying, and the fact that the record labels didn't capitalize on the new, way of streaming and all that kind of thing, and allowed Napster to kind of monopolize and cheapen music. That is what changed everything, which is why until COVID, most people were making their money from merch and from live gigs, and
Yes.
A million streams doesn't even get you much, of money. So.
Yeah, amazing. I think, you were just saying like the record industry allowed it. I think nobody knew what the hell was going on, because it was such a radical change in formats, and it seems a little bit like that now in a way that not many people know how to predict where it's going from here, because live gigs are.
Now live gigs are done.
Say again?
I say now that live gigs are out of the equation,
live gigs are out of the equation. Money? Yeah, for now. Yeah, definitely. It's the economic impact on people being able to buy music is I'd say at least a third of the population is out of that equation, of actually purchasing music,
So over here,
be interesting.
Sorry to cut you there, but I was just gonna say, like, over here, a lot of people you can actually make a living doing live, whether you're in function bands, whether you're doing your own stuff, playing in bars, restaurants. So I have quite a few friends who are scratching their heads right now, like really either doing driving jobs or they've become delivery drivers, stuff like that. When I left South Africa, the market, it was so small and very niche. So I'm not even sure what it must be like now and how it affects.
It's non-existent.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's non-existent. Politically speaking, economically, South Africa has issues that there are different, say, to living in the UK or Germany or even in the States. So people there's a famous German saying that is like, first you eat and then you can have culture. It's that kind of scenario where if you're not eating, you're not going to theater, you're not going to the movies, you're definitely not going to go and see a live gig. So South Africans have been preoccupied with trying to just get bread on the table for a very long time, So it's just a weird kind of thing. But having said that, and as you know, Cape Town and South Africa in general, because of that too, there's a incredible amount of creativity that's around, And this is always the nice thing. It's kind of unpredictable, but if everything lines up nicely, you could go out there on Friday or even during the week and catch an amazing gig somewhere, It just depends on who a little bit of a network, And so there's still some interesting stuff happening out there for sure.
I mean, I was speaking to some people about that, and I was really slightly disappointed because even when I left, I mean, I left in about 2005, and before that,
In
Cape Town
2009.
used to 2005, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I mean, Cape Town used to have its hotspots, Long Street, and all those places, and like you know, I don't know, in Joburg there used to be loads, you know, there used to be like
Yes.
Melville and all these places, Baseline,
Yeah.
and like now it just seems like there's not much at all. Like,
Yeah, there's not much.
Even
There's
before
really not
lockdown
much.
or what?
Already before lockdown, definitely. It's like something that's been, I would say I was in Germany between 2010 and 2014, 2011 and 2014. So already before 2010, there was a bit of a period where the World Cup and that whole euphoria kind of buoyed a little bit of like venues having music. But I think it just kind of disappeared even already from after the World Cup, a little bit by bit, that gigs were offering less money already that time. When I got back in 2014, 2015, the rates that like places were offering live musicians were ridiculous, man. It was terrible, man. It wasn't good, So it's kind of been on a steady decline in that way. And also, again, like we're just talking about the formats changing and the way people consume music, And funny, I was watching something the other day, Frank Zappa interview way back on MTV, where he was like, the interview was asking him about like what's happening in the music business. And he was like, well, you should know MTV, you guys fucked it up for us basically, It's by basically like putting video to music, Now it's not about the song anymore. Now it's about the pictures,
Yeah.
And exactly. And I think this is also the thing that people are saturated with content generally, but I think that's just a sign of the times. There's nothing we can do about it. It's not, keep making music, keep working with people, keep collaborating where you can. I think that's the only way to really seed out the good seed from the bad seed, is that not good and bad, but you know what I'm trying to say is that there'll always be good content. You have to kind of look for it. That's all, and have some sort of network.
No, of course, man. So tell us a bit about your background in terms of, were you're not originally, you born in Windhoek or in Namibia?
Exactly, yeah. I was born in Windhoek, Namibia. For those of you who don't know, it's the next country up on the west coast. A bit of background history of Namibia. It used to be a German colony, so there's quite a few German-speaking people out there, but I wasn't from that side at that time. My grandparents from my mother's side were from Hamburg, Germany, and they arrived in Cape Town on a ship in the 1950s after the war in Europe. My dad was from Johannesburg. My dad was a drummer, so music has kind of been in my family from my dad's side since I can remember. So I've been into drums and percussion since I was a baby, So it's literally, it's been with me for a very long time. And I just love music in terms of what I've had as an exposure. Look, my parents I'm born to white South African parents or Southern African parents of European origin. The musical influences those were the years of apartheid, So what I was listening to at home was lots of like big band stuff. My dad used to love like big band jazz, stuff like Nat King Cole or Louis Armstrong, that type of thing, Ella Fitzgerald. My mother was like more into the Beatles and the pop phase of the Elvis phases, So nothing groundbreaking in that sense, or nothing, should I say, counterculture, nothing, mostly mainstream type of stuff, but still it's music that I enjoyed listening to and singing along to. But growing up in Namibia at the time, so I went to the only multiracial school in Namibia, which is St. Paul's College. It is like a Catholic co-ed, like both girls and boys school. So I was exposed to other South Africans, which was a blessing. And somehow I remember this from very young. I was always drawn to African music, in some way. I didn't know it, and there wasn't really access to African music other than turning on the radio, which I was normally told then to turn off, by my parents because they didn't like what they heard. But I enjoyed that kind of that guitar music, that ding 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 ding, that kind of like Zimbabwean, Angolan, the typical 3/4 rhythm type of 6/8 rhythm stuff, So I was always kind of into that, and it really did intrigue me. And then of course when after getting through censorship boards, because this is the other thing that one needs to remember growing up in the 80s, because we're talking about the 70s and the 80s in South Africa, essentially, because Namibia was a province of South Africa, so it was governed in the same way, same rules applied. So there was a censorship board. Music wasn't easy to come by, good music, you know. So when we started to get, when I say we, my brother and myself started to get exposed to stuff like Bob Marley and the Wailers, Peter Tosh, Steel Pulse from the UK. Those were like big events in my life, you know. It was like, wow, this is not just music that speaks to me, because there's something in the rhythm section, you know, there's something in the bass and the drums that's driving this thing. But also obviously the lyrics, you know, which I didn't at this time understand a lot of the concepts that were being put out in the songs, you know. But the music spoke to me, the vibe spoke to me. So reggae was a big influence in my life for sure. Definitely jazz from my dad. And then generally just music, you know, whether it be stuff like Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young, which is the typical sort of like 60s, 70s stuff. Hendrix, of course.
Yeah, my dad was heavy into that.
Yeah, really? Okay, yeah. So yeah. I was kind of exposed to a lot of different stuff, you know, but drumming from a young age for sure. Cadet drumming in a cadet band, you know, marching band.
Yes, yeah, the marching
band.
We
had cadets every Wednesday. That was the thing, you know, you either go march like soldiers or you play in the band, you know. So I was playing in the band, and that was my introduction to snare drum, marching snare drum kind of stuff. So rudiments like paradiddles and,
yes, of course,
you know, triplets and all that kind of stuff, you know.
So how did you find your way to playing with
the Cape?
Playing with movement.
Yeah, the Cape, man. So basically after school, I was forced to do that military service like all of us were at the time. I did like a year and a half. So basically it was in that year where Mandela was released. So it was all those like crazy years, you know. So Mandela was released. I had my last year of military service cut short. It was 1989.
89, okay.
Yeah. So basically I finished 87, I matriculated. 88, I went to the army. I was supposed to do until the end of 89, but then all that cut was cut, you know, there's things were like really happening very quickly.
Yeah.
So I didn't finish my military service, which was great. But then, so I hung around in Nambia for a few years, not really knowing what to do. And then eventually I music kind of just bit again, because I'd kind of left it after finishing school, and then the army. Music wasn't really prominent in my life, you know. It was 80s, apartheid South Africa. There wasn't really Windhoek, you know. Windhoek, it's like a suburb of Johannesburg, you know, tiny town in the bushveld, nothing going on. And of course, racist, sexist, you know, all of that. I mean, in terms of it's the vibe at the time wasn't really conducive to, let's like play music and create music, you know. Anyway, something special. But so I eventually moved down to Cape Town in 95, and so I played in a couple of different like bands in around downtown, like Long Street in the area. And then very soon after that, I played in the band Boomslang. We formed a band called Boomslang. It was a 3-piece. Initially, it was a 4-piece with a vocalist, bass, drums, and guitar. So I met these two brothers, Afrikaans guys. We really got on really well musically. We just gelled. You know, there's this kind of special thing that happens with artists or musicians or lovers. You know, it's like you meet someone and something's just working. You don't know what to. You know, you can't really identify what it is, but it really worked. So we had a really good year and a half of playing with Boomslang, which then we we lost our singer at the time. It was just not working out, you know. And then I went to matinees at Angels in Greenpoint, which is a strip of clubs, actually, gay bars during the night. Daytime was like matinees where they did hip hop. And I went to a couple of the matinees because I knew there was some open mic things happening there with MCs over either drum and bass or jungle or like just empty beats, you know. And that's where I got to meet Denver Turner, Deform. And he was at the time, he was a graphic designer, born and raised Lansdowne, Cape Flatside. And that was also my first sort of real interaction between white and black South Africa or black Cape Town, you know, in terms of like really, because that's really where I wanted to go. I wanted to meet people that were like doing something that was amazing, you know, and especially this cross-cultural thing really appealed to me. When I say cross-cultural, I was never really a hip-hop head essentially, but I listened to hip-hop with other music throughout my developing years. But Denver as a character was like a full, you know, four corners hip-hop.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You know, yeah. So this is so I got to exposed to a couple of other characters in that scene. But yeah, we kind of hit it off really quite quickly and easily. So he joined us for a couple of rehearsals, and within a few weeks we were recording 3 singles already. You know, so it was like a quick, kind of just like I got together with those two brothers. It was with Denver as well. It was a quick like let's do this thing. You know, yeah. So that was like 1997. So that was, at that stage, it wasn't Mood Phase 5 yet. It was called Boomslang featuring Ultra Berserk or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It was basically, we were still Boomslang, but featuring Ultra Berserk, you know. And then through a mutual friend of Denver's, a DJ that we knew on the scene, a guy called Adam Lieber, who also lives in London now, as far as I know. We invited him to join us on turntables. So he wasn't a scratch DJ. He was more like, he was a selector, you know. He had a ton of records, really nice stuff. They were having kind of regular parties around Cape Town, house parties, where him and some other DJs would just select really nice tunes coming out of the Ninja tune and the early kind of drum and bass and jungle scene, you know. And this was when I heard jungle and drum and bass, that for me was in the next. It was like, wow, I feel like I found my true love, you know. Yeah, because of, again, the influence, you know, it's undeniable. The influence of drum and bass and jungle it's got so much reggae and roots in it, you know. Double up, you know. Take a 90 beats per minute song, put it on 180 beats, and you got something, you know. Take some jazz breaks, and you got something really nice happening, you know.
No, I felt
so. Yeah, that was a new thing. Yeah, new thing for me, and I loved it. And that was the beginning of the Mood Phase 5 eras, when we met, called DJ Bonanza, Adam Lieber, Denver, and myself and the two brothers, you know. So Ernie wasn't in the picture yet, you know.
Okay.
So then literally within a few months of that, I'd say within 6 or 10 months, we were looking for a singer, and a mutual friend of mine said he knew somebody that might work. And that's when I called Ernestine, and so Ernie's from Grassy Park, sort of similar side to where Lansdowne, where Denver comes from. Yeah, I mean,
of course, for the people.
Yeah, for the listeners, you know. So Cape Flats is a big place, lots of suburbs, but Grassy Park and Lansdowne are sort of on the edge of just behind where the white suburbs end and the railways and whatever start, and then on the other side of the tracks, basically, you know. So it was like a new world for me, and it was quite exciting because, yeah. Anyway, so we had an audition with Ernie, and she joined also pretty much almost instantly. And things worked, you know. It was a little awkward because, again, it was 4 guys, 1, 2, 3, 5, 4 guys and a girl, you know. There was a bit of edginess, and there were a few sort of, I'd say, just like unspoken sort of silent things that we didn't quite know how to deal with yet. But like with time and just getting to know each other, it was it just became something quite amazing. So we wrote quite a lot of songs in the first year. Things didn't kind of just although we sparked creatively, the recording process was really difficult, you know, because in those years still it was before the digital era. Getting into recording studio cost money, a lot of money. Plus, like, you know, you're left with a DAT tape, you know. What the fuck are you gonna do with a DAT tape? You know what I'm saying? So it was like a weird time as well, you know, to kind of make sense of the recording thing and what are you gonna do with this thing, you know. You paid like 3 or 4K for this tape, you know. Now you gotta like take it to the next level, you know. So yeah, just so that was really just the beginnings of learning about the music business, publishing, obviously recording studios, and registering your names with the SAMRO, with the rights organizations and stuff like that.
SAMRO.
Yeah. But big learning curve, yeah. So we recorded one album at Mother City Records, also just off Long Street, and that was the one that kind of drove us into some public spaces, you know. I mean,
was that radio. Steady On, or was that before?
Steady On, exactly. Yeah, Steady On. So I think I can't even remember how many tracks, but it was a nice album because it had like a nice varied sound on it. It was the first, I wouldn't say the first of its kind in South Africa, but it was quite pioneering in the sense that it had like, I used a lot of, as a drummer, I didn't play a lot of the stuff live. I sampled myself, which is how those songs were based on samples of myself, you know. Okay. So I had a small sampler, like a Roland SP202, it was one of those old DR2. Yeah, like basically just a phrase sampler. So I could just sample with a stereo mic on it, sample my drums, and then find a nice loop and then take it to the studio, you know. So that's how we basically made that album, is through drum loops. From my own loops or program. Yeah, so that was in a nutshell how, I mean, not the first works, but yeah, from playing live to getting into drum machines.
And so how did you guys link up with African Dope? Because they were like probably my favorite label at that era. I mean, they were associated with so many bands I loved, you know, like you guys, I think it was Goede,
Yeah.
I think Max Normal got him. I don't know if it's Max Normal, but the
yeah, constructors.
Oh yes, Marcus Wildstorm and Felix the
yeah,
Best. And,
exactly. Yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, so we were like the first. We were the first signing on that label. So basically, it was just. I mean, Cape Town is a small scene. It's like a slice of London or a slice of New York. It's a really small little scene. So there weren't a lot of labels in Cape Town. There were a couple, but African Dope, somehow we were connected indirectly through some people to them, just happened to know them. And
Crushed and Sorted, or what are their names?
Crushed and Sorted, exactly. Yeah. So Fletcher and Roach at the time were DJ duo.
Yes.
Yeah, Crushed and Sorted. Yes. So they had like a live DJ set that they would play quite at most of the festivals and clubs and like Get a Fix, and there were a couple of like regular clubs in the city that were working, like Get a Fix was one of them, So basically it's the kind of place you could, like, without getting bust, like sit and roll your spliff, listen to music daytime in Long Street, which was unheard of, but it was happening,
Especially,
Yeah, exactly. So there were a couple of really nice, I mean, those years in Long Street was really nice because there were a lot of like venues that weren't venues as such. They were just like a space in the top of a building. People knew about it. You could go there, bring the buzzer, get let in, and then you in like a club basically, but daytime, not with lights in, but you could sit there, chat, have a drink, smoke weed, and that kind of thing. So it was a nice scene in Cape Town at the time. So this is like 96, 7, 8. It's kind of a special time for me personally, but I mean, I know that we all see this differently, but there was a lot happening, and it just seemed like a really like thriving time in terms of music. Lots of bands playing every weekend. Like, I mean, literally 4 nights a week, you could go out and you could see at least 1 or 2 or 3 bands performing,
Wow.
A lot of rock stuff, but there was a lot of crossover stuff happening, which I liked, There were bands like Firing Squad, which was nice. It was also like a really crossover type of band, hip hop and ragga, live musicians, there were lots of really interesting bands, which I really dug. 9 was one of my biggest influences in those early years of Cape Town when I arrived there. I don't know if you heard of 9.
No,
9 was Pharrell Williams and the brothers James and I get their surnames, but like all colored band. When I say colored, so like all brown band, like guys were just playing like this kind of like Rage Against the Machine type of like rap metal, which for Cape Town in 95, 96 was like, it was almost on par to like what was happening in Los Angeles, So Cape Town at that time like reminded me a bit of like a small piece of LA, It had had a big mix of culture. So there was, of course, like you had your white music and your black music, but there were places where that combined, which was great. Which nowadays is hard to find, It really is. I mean, you do see session musicians playing in like really like diverse type of bands, but somehow it's they're session musicians. There wasn't this like, there was a lot of pure creativity that was happening, which was amazing. So it wasn't really about I'm doing this gig and I'm getting paid and how much am I getting paid and I got another gig after this. It was like you were down with the band and you were down with the band, You were like in it until the thing broke, and that made it quite amazing actually. There was this kind of dedication that was it wasn't about sessioning for people. It was literally like you in this thing and you're gonna like put your posters up, stick them under the bridge every weekend, hand out flyers in the street during the day. It was a kind of
so were the gigs free or like were they paid gigs? I mean, no, what?
No, like, so basically that was the other thing. Yeah, some gigs usually cover charge at the door. So you would, for instance, the Purple Turtle. I don't know if you remember that venue on the corner of Green Market Square, Long Street, Short Market Street. There was a building there called the Purple Turtle. This is like mid 90s. So they would they had a program of bands, a calendar of bands for the month. And you would, with the owners of the club, arrange like a door deal, which meant like you got a portion of the door. You would have to arrange your own door person and stamp and cash box. And so it was like a kind of a collaboration in a way, which worked, But what we then did with Moodfest 5, because we kind of saw the kind of, we wanted to attract our own crowd of people, because it was, in a way, it was, dare I say it, like it was groundbreaking in the way that it was really pulling people from different cultural backgrounds together, whereas the Purple Turtle was like a white gig, it was like rock fans listening to rock bands every weekend, So we started to look for our own venues in and around the City Bowl and Observatory. And so we started to basically host our own parties. So Denver, as a designer, would make up the flyer. these flyers were awesome. It's pity I don't have any as an example, but like we had like a real kind of a form, not a format, but a look on the flyers that spoke to something that was emerging. It was like it really garnered the interest of people, you know. It was like this thing, you know. So basically, like we got a venue, got some flyers out, got the sound system organized, which was usually friends with speakers and cables and mics, and then we built up a following that way, you know. So by the time we had Ernie, and we were like, say, by 97, end of 97, like when we started doing those gigs, like we would have maybe 30 people in the gig, not really covering costs, like literally just like
breaking even, or
not even breaking even, but within about a year and a half of doing that and building up, because people were, you know, word was getting out and it's happening and it's fun. And it was also different because, like I said, there was this cross-cultural, it was the first time personally that I saw people coming from all sides of Cape Town, you know, coming to a gig together, you know, because the music wasn't so specifically, it was specifically for one demographic, you know. It wasn't just rock, you know, it was a mixture of psychedelic, rock, funk, blues, hip hop, soul music, and it was kind of happening at one venue, you know, with one band. So eventually we had like gigs where we would like regularly get 500 people in the door. Wow. And then eventually up to like 1,000 people, you know. So it like really, we saw it grow from 30 people for about 4, 5, 6 months, just 30 people, 40 people, couple of hundred, up to 500, and then up to almost 1,000 people quite on a regular basis, you know. So we were starting to make some money at the door for the first time, proper bucks, you know. I mean, we had a big band and we had lots of people to pay as well. So it wasn't like, you know, just all the costs, because you take on everything yourself. You have to pay for the flyer, pay for the sound system, pay for the venue, pay for the bar people and all the other stuff. But it was, it kind of created like a party vibe in Cape Town that was, that I personally hadn't seen before, you know. Again, I'm just from my perspective, that's how it was for me. It was like it's something new. People were digging it. And at the same time, Denver and Adam were organizing 2 shows. When I say shows, there were 2 like DJ type of gigs. One was called Ghetto 3000, which was really popular. Also similar type of crowds, 500 people, 1,000 people, just like getting down to like the best DJs in town, sometimes international DJs. So Adam and Denver had really good thing going on. And the other show that Adam did on his own was called The Pickle, which was also pretty cool. It was like a Michaelis art scene kind of people coming to these shows, and it was mostly DJs, kind of eclectic beats, not so much what Ghetto 3000 was more of a hip hop show. The Pickle was more of a kind of eclectic stuff like Amon Tobin, kind of like eclectic type of drum and bass and jungle and those kind of instrumental beats that were happening. So those were the kind of 3 things that were happening quite a lot. So it was the Mood Phase 5 shows, the Pickle and the Ghetto 3000, and that was happening for a few years, you know. And then record company involvement and you know, things get kind of complicated. And of course, when you're young, I mean, speaking again for myself, you know, young and you're full of ideas and not that mature in terms of how you to make decisions, and you know, everything's about, you know, it's about me and what I want to do this, you know, and we're going to do this. And anyway, so the point being, long story short, is that after releasing the album, doing some shows, going to Joburg fairly regularly in Durban and some other spots, and then heading overseas for a couple of good tours to Amsterdam, Czech Republic, and Hamburg, up Germany. So twice on that route. Come back to Cape Town, new album in the works, new producers, Grenville Williams from Godessa, and new collaborations with Godessa. Things just got really kind of complex in the way that how we were managing things. And because, I mean, this is again my perspective, but the way it was running with African Dope was that we were the band that was making the label visible. And with that came obviously income and expenses. You know, they were starting to look for other artists. So yes, Felix Leban was signed, and then later Wadi Jones with Constructors was signed, and
I mean, I don't think that record didn't even do that well. I mean, I love that record.
Yeah. No.
But it was such a concept, like so far ahead of its time, that I don't think it did. Yeah. I don't even think people even know about Constructors.
Yeah, I think it was exactly the time when we fell out with them, you know, because it was like, so the money they were making from Mood Phase was going into the other artists, you know, and also into us, you know. But it became, from our perspective, like it was just not tenable. It was just not doable anymore. It was basically like we were making money. Say again?
Godessa as well. They were also signed to.
Let me think. Godessa, no, they opted to stay because Grenville Williams, who's now in Johannesburg as the producer and bass player of Nine, actually, they opted to form their own label and keep their stuff. I think they did a couple of singles with African Dope.
But they had a few commercial hits. I mean, like
National Social Ills and definitely. Anyway, so to cut a long story short, we kind of fell out with the label, and literally within some months of that, there were various pregnancies in the band. So Bernie and I we had our first kid. Denver just had, within the 8 months before us, had a son with his wife, and Douglas, the trumpet, and also was expecting a baby. So that with the label and the complications, it was too much,
Yeah.
So we literally, we had some personal fallouts, but nothing major. It was just that a lot of pressure, like to kind of keep it together, go on tour. Baby's coming,
That's the usual band thing, isn't it? You grow up, you get married, you have kids.
Oh yeah. So anyway, that was kind of the end of that, but it was at a stage where we were earning money and we were treating it like a career, essentially. And then years after that, it went back to
many
like
bands are really sustainable in the long run. Like, obviously I engineer, so I see the lifespans of these bands. Like when I started, like about 10 years ago. So when I like engineer for these young bands, you see them come together. They form like just in uni. They're all in university and they're all energetic. And then within 3-4 years, then the drummer starts dating this girl, and then this happens, and then all of a sudden.
Why are you playing the drummer, man? You always playing the drummer.
Not the drummer, the guitarist.
I see you got a nice bass standing there, man. I'm just like admiring. There's a nice big bass you got there.
Yes, that's my double bass, man. I
play bass, huh?
So yeah, bass. That's my mission. I'm busy. I can play by ear. But bass is my instrument. I was given that bass. I used to do a lot of recording for jazz bands, and still a good friend of mine, actually. His name is Vidal Montgomery. He played with Courtney Pine. Jazz guys, Omar Lightfolk over here, Cameron Pierre from St. Lucia is very sick, like jazz guys. So I used to do lots of recording, and one day I told him, I was like, my mission is to learn double bass before I die. And he was like, hey, I got the double bass for you there, man. I was like, what? And so last year he gave it to me, and I've been practicing and trying to get
amazing. It's a nice thing about Europe, just like reflecting on that. Like people are quite free to pass things on,
The thing is, it's a very different. I'll use a simple example. Like my mother was here last year. She didn't want to take my kids to the park because she's scared. It's not really something you do in South Africa. Go alone to the park. So something simple like that. Over here you leave. I remember I had a gig in Brixton over here, and as I came out the tube station, I dropped my wallet, and I must have had about 40 pounds or something, all my cards, everything. Come to the gig now, it's about 10 minutes up the road. I check out, my wallet's gone. Stressing, I phone my wife, I'm trying to get hold. Half an hour later, this lady walks in there. She's like, yo, I found this wallet. I looked up your name. I found you on Facebook. I saw you playing a gig here, and I brought your wallet.
Amazing.
To you, and with the money and everything.
Wow.
So like, I'm not saying there's no crime here and stuff. There is serious stuff.
No, of course, it's a big city.
There is a different perception. I think when the majority or like a lot of the people can afford certain things like phones and nice trainers and stuff, then. Whereas over there, I'd say the majority of people are, the opposite. So there's a hunger and a desire, a need, So if you pick up 50 Rand, you're not going to go and now look and see who's You're going to be like, yo, I'm going to go buy food or go buy, do something.
Big time. No, it's getting a bit off the subject now, but like since March, you see the amount of homeless people on the streets is like tripled, like times 5, like. It's just people everywhere in the streets, man. It's crazy. One of the things.
Let's go off the topic a bit. Yeah, tell me about your COVID experience.
Yeah, the situation. Just personally for me, like Cape Town was always tricky. Negotiating that street thing. There's like just so many people in the street. Not because like of fear, for me, it was because I always generally interact with more with people like on the streets than I do with, you know, just like kind of normal like working people. But yeah, it's got way more than it was 5-6 months ago. So like I literally at every, I mean, you just drive down from, we live up on the Devil's Peak side, so we're up in the towers, the three salt and pepper towers. So
Okay,
literally when you drive downhill and you get to your first lights, there already you're looking at least at the moment like 1, 2, 3, 15 or 20 like homeless people pitching tents under that first bridge, you know, which like I said, 6 months ago, there was nobody sleeping there. So there's at least 20 people sleeping just like on the first set of lights. Then you will go to the next one, and literally at every set of lights, you'll see plastic tents pitched under branches, people standing with their boards, white, black, you know, everybody. Of course, like if you look at the demographics of South Africa, you'll always see more black people on the street, but lots of white people on the street as well, you know. Yeah, so that's changed a lot, and I don't think it's going to get any better. I mean, Cape Town as a city and South Africa as a country was relying on tourism for the last 25 years. You know, since Mandela was released, tourism to South Africa has really increased and has been keeping us afloat because of the apartheid legacy. People want to see where Nelson Mandela was in prison, Robben Island. I mean, you name it. There were a lot of places that people in other countries wanted to visit. You know, yeah, as a matter of necessity. Before you die, you got to go to Robben Island, you know, especially for African Americans. Robben Island is the #1 hotspot, you know. And I don't see that coming back anytime soon, you know, especially with the rules now that you need a virus test before you leave, and then you need to present that at the immigration, and then you're going to have another one in the country. It's all costs money as well, you know. So I don't think this is going to be anything that kind of changes back to the way it was. And Cape Town as a city relying on tourism, musicians are relying on bars and clubs and restaurants to pay them, restaurants and bars and clubs paying all their staff, all the car watch guards in the streets at night because of bars and clubs and restaurants. And it's had a huge effect like a negative effect on the income of people, you know. It's hard to say, but I would say guessing, and my guesses are usually quite accurate, is in terms of what we've lost in the last months in terms of not so much in income, but how many more unemployed people there are. You know, we were sitting at something between, we're sitting at 50 to 40%. I used to tell this all the time because I was, you know, and I think right now there's at least another 25% or more people unemployed, you know. So it's going to have a huge effect, and this is still the beginning. But again, not to be negative, because as you know, where one door closes, another will open. There will be new opportunities. People will be a little more interested in traveling locally. We'll have to adapt, you know, the way we perform music. Even people will be playing for free, you know. This is what's going to happen.
What were you doing before that? I mean, how was it?
For lockdown, I was the last 5 years I was working as a tour guide basically for international visitors. So I was literally picking up people in hotels. Yeah, it's gone. Yeah. Literally, I'm looking for new things, you know. So at the moment, I'm quite nice. I'm playing a lot. So I practice like yoga mat, you know. So I'm playing a bit, and I'm into like gardening and plants. So I'm like out in the garden a lot.
Nice.
So the property's bigger, so I get to kind of go out, and I live in a block of flats, but the common property is huge, you know, so there's space. So I'm planting.
Still married or not?
Yeah, still married. I mean, legally speaking, we still live together, me and Ernie. We have 3 kids together. So we live in a little apartment. It's tight, but it's home, you know. It's like a small cramped space, but it's all good. Kids our oldest son is 17, Noah, and we've got Toby, he's 15, and Yin, our daughter, is 11 now. So they've been going to school, but we also took them out of school. As soon as this COVID thing hit, we decided, no, we're gonna homeschool, or at least get them out of that system, you know, because it was full of pressure, you know.
Yeah.
You know, people were kind of freaking out, but at the same time, school was just cupping on, you know. The machine was just trying to churn on, you know. Where we as parents were saying like, well, stop. We need to like reassess the situation.
I took my kids straight away out, man. Like same time.
Okay, you have kids, huh?
I've got 3 years. I've also got 3 kids.
Okay.
Much younger than yours though, so I'm still in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
But Yeah, they all are. They were all taken out of school.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
you
at
were
the
in
moment,
Germany.
we were in Germany. So basically, like after the World Cup, we decided we're gonna leave Cape Town and try to do our music thing in another country, you know. And Germany seemed like a good option because of all the cities like Berlin and Munich and Hamburg, where there's quite a lot happening, lots of festivals. And then we have some family down in Switzerland, so we thought, okay, Germany seems like a good option because we have some people down in Switzerland. And because my mother was German and she always maintained her passport, German passport. She was a permanent resident in South Africa, but she had a German passport. So I could apply for our kids to have German passports, which they got pretty quickly, you know, which was a
Nice.
luck.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
So yeah, we went to Germany from 2011 until 2014. And yeah, we were hoping to like get Ernie's solo career. So basically after Moodfest 5, that's what we did. Then after that is like I focused my attention on Ernie's songs, you know. So she had a lot of really great songs and we started to record her songs. So we went to Germany then to try and promote that album, Dub for Mama, it's called, Ernestine Dean.
Yes.
And so we tried to promote that there and get gigs, but it was really hard, you know. It's like we had a little bit of a kind of fantastic vision, but we tried, you know.
No, I know loads of bands who've moved to Germany. I mean, to Berlin especially, and have come back already.
Yeah.
Stuff. I mean, it's conducive for like a lot of two of the bands I knew that moved out there. It was easy for them to live and work and gig, but like in terms of building their music to a certain level, there wasn't the infrastructure for that because you still need London or you know something much like a much bigger.
Yes, definitely, and I think also that's the thing about Germany as a music market. Wow, man, it's like cover bands, bro. It's like there's tons of them.
David Hasselhoff, or you know.
Yeah, I was shocked. You know, like in Cape Town or in South Africa, it's like this. There's lots of creative, like original bands and few cover bands. The cover bands are working; they're making money. You know, the jazz guys, and they're making bucks. You know.
Yeah.
The creative, you know, the original bands are not making money, but they're great, you know.
They're amazing.
Germany, it was like the exact opposite. It was like there are tons of cover bands. They're all working. They're all making money, and they're very few. Like we almost saw no original bands.
London is very similar. London is very similar. Like there's quite a few original bands, but most of them, I'd say, a lot of them will have at least 2 or 3 members who dip for cover bands who make living cover bands. I mean, some of these cover bands they'll get flown to Dubai to play these hotels and stuff. And these people literally, I have friends who are paying off mortgages playing in cover bands.
Yeah, I believe you. There's a couple of people in Cape Town doing this. Yeah, there's a couple of bands from Cape Town doing what you're doing. You know, like awesome musicians from the Cape Flats, good bands, good musos. They're off in Dubai and they're paying their bills. You know.
Yeah, I mean, even in up until lockdown, guys, that's what they were doing. They have 2 gigs a weekend, you know, £200 gigs each. That's a salary. That's a monthly salary every weekend. You know what I mean? And they're literally just playing cover band gigs. I used to do sound a lot, like live a few years ago before I stopped doing live sound. But I'm not stopped. But I used to do a lot of live sound for these guys, and so many. I mean, that was the difference that I could see, you know, between. I mean, I have a friend back home who has a company who does live sound who was doing really well in Joburg. But doing what I do over there or doing what I did over there, I couldn't really see like making a proper living wage. Do you know what I mean? Or if there's just a sheer scale, because like, there's so many clubs and pubs and venues and corporate functions everywhere with the lockdown and stuff. So
so are you still busy? Is there work for you?
Well, now I've run my own studio. I mean, I had my own studio up until the beginning of lockdown. I shared it with a partner, and then I kind of had to shut down when lockdown happened, which has actually worked out better because that overhead is gone. So I'm still getting work because I do a lot of mixing and mastering. I do a lot of production for people.
Nice.
So because loads of people are now working at home and making music at their computers, they need someone to kind of still do the final process. So
definitely, that's great. Cool. Nice.
Our company, Abstract Sound, we basically do the final touches. We mix, we master, and I've started using another studio now, and it's more of a pay-as-you-go basis. So it's just better when people want to go in and record. I just go there, pay them for the time, just add that to my overhead. Whereas we were paying monthly, and that was like used to kill us. We were just used to like, you know, just about
definitely.
Stuff
So what kind of equipment are you working on when you're mixing and mastering?
At the moment, a lot in the box, you know. I mean, I use Pro Tools, I use Logic.
Yeah.
I've got like loads of plugins. I've got a few bits of outboard. Just a few choice like bus compressors and stuff like SSL clones and API clones, stuff like that.
Okay.
You know, maybe some analog reverbs, but mostly everything in the box nowadays. You know, and then
Okay.
I'll run my final mixes through a SSL clone just to give it a bit of analog warmth and stuff. But generally, that's how it is. It's
cool.
It's all in the box, man. I mean,
it is all in the box.
Not back in the day, but like I used to work in commercial studios before I had my own place for about 7-8 years in West London, and I used to work on a SSL 4000G. Well, before that we had, and then I mean, there's another place I use. We have like there was a Neve there. I've worked on most like, you know, analog consoles, but it just used to be. It came to a point where it became tedious, you know, like recording mixes on an analog disc, and the client wants something changed. I do this fantastic mix. I'm putting it through all these analog things, and then the guy says, "Can you just tweak that vocal there? Can you just change that guitar?" Oh,
Okay.
Now in the box, I mean, I just box and,
it's incredible how much things have changed. I mean, I know these conversations have been had by the million, you know, like the last 20 years, what's happening in the music business, you know, in terms of technology, and not just formats, but just the tech, man, is incredible. I
use UAD, and like honestly, I can safely say like their plugins and their emulations, because I can record through their plugins as well. So if I need a LA2A or I need a whatever compressor, literally on the way in through a plugin, and it sounds like it's not the same, but it's damn good. Like really good.
Maybe it's better even, who knows.
Possibly. I mean, who cares? Like I decided long ago that I'm not going to be one of these you know, what do you call these people, like
purists.
I'm not because I kind of was on the cusp. I like you're saying ADAT, when I was studying sound engineering, that was like 2002-3, and we were bloody recording to the stupid ADAT machine thing, like, you know what I mean? And that was like the convergence of technology when they were changing from, you know, then the whole loudness wars thing started going on. So I did have analog experience, and then I kind of went into the digital world, and so I prefer at the end of the day to like make good music, make a good song.
Definitely. No, I agree. I also I prefer just to you work with what you have, you know, and that could be a bit of old gear, a bit of new gear, some software, you make it work, you know.
Whatever, it doesn't really matter. Like
whatever.
I literally, because I couldn't afford a lot of the stuff in the beginning, I used to use all the standard plugins, all the standard compressors, everything, just to kind of prove to myself. And also because I had to like, it wasn't as transferable as now. Like now I've got my laptop, I've got my iLock, I've got everything on there. I can go to anywhere and just plug my laptop in, and I can plug in and play. When I was at the old studios, I used to go to different studios, and they all had, I'd have to adapt. Like if they were using Logic, I'd have to use Logic. If they're using Pro Tools, I'd have to use that. I mean, I learned on Cubase, which I hate, but most places use these things. But I'd have to adapt. And like a compressor is a compressor. Yes, they've got colors and whatever. Yes, an EQ is an EQ. And like I said, at the end of the day, if the song is shit, the most important things for me was a good musician, a good song, and you know, generally that makes it sound good.
Yeah, that is it. That is it, definitely.
So
the song it's always about the song.
Are you working on any stuff at the moment, or like?
No, not currently. No. Well, I play with like once a week, twice a week. I've got a friend not far away from here who's like a gear junkie. He's a collector, but we play. He's a guitar player, so we just play bass and drums and guitar just to play. Mostly like his compositions, like jazz stuff, but it's more easy, like blues, jazz kind of, you know, like Wes Montgomery type of fun kind of stuff, you know. So yeah, I'm playing, which is great because for the last 5 years I haven't been playing because I was working. Yeah. So the phases of I've gone through those phases of working two jobs, one as a musician, one as in the photographic industry or the film industry here in Cape Town. So I've gone through lots of phases of like doing lots of different jobs alongside music, you know. So There were some years where I was just focused on music, but currently the way things are going, again, I'm meeting. Well, there's a few different things that I enjoy doing. Like I've already told you, music, plants, and health.
What kind of plants?
Like, all kinds of. I love bonsais, small trees. But mostly I do like food plants, herbs, cannabis. Of course, I grow cannabis because it's one of the most amazing plants on the planet.
I was gonna say because it's legal there now. Well, I don't know.
It has been, since when did they pass the last one? They've been amending the law for the last 10 years, but basically at this stage it's looking very good.
Wow.
You're allowed to have like a max amount of 1.2 kilograms on you, which is a lot of marijuana.
You're allowed to have it on you and smoke it, like?
Well, not but basically if you're out in public, I think something like 400 or 500 grams, which is a lot,
Yeah, that
300 to 400 grams on you when you're out in public. If you're in your home, 1.2 kilos.
Bro, if you're from London, you understand what grams are because you know how expensive Zol is over here.
Yeah, gram, 1 gram. So so if you get caught in public, you're allowed to have between 300 and 400 grams of weight. Is it either 30 or 40 grams or I think it's more like 30 or 40 grams.
Yeah, because
but it's a lot.
26 grams is an ounce, isn't it? Or 28 grams is an ounce.
Something like that. But personal for personal use in your own home, 1.2 kilogram max.
Wow.
And so the laws, but these are things that have been, like I said, they've been working on it for years now. There are a lot of cannabis activists in South Africa, in Cape Town and in Joburg, lawyers and activists generally, and they've been putting pressure. They've been putting on a lot of pressure. The Dacha couple. I mean, these are people that have paid the price, my bro. They've been arrested so many times. They've got a ton of outstanding cases with the government, and they've also put pressure on government with lawyers and rights groups, because our constitution supports freedom of religion. So again,
I wonder when it's going to happen over here. I mean, they've relaxed the laws on CBD, so they're selling CBD now.
Yeah.
But, they've upped the rating on weed. They've actually classified it as a higher. They've given it a higher classification.
It's because of the intensity of how it's being grown. That's one downside is that the growing, just like the music industry, has also changed a lot. How people are growing, not the quantities, but the intensity of the product. Of the flowers. So they are to some of them are to a degree almost like, I guess, like mushrooms, almost not quite, but they are on the verge of hallucinogens.
Talking about hallucinogens and stuff, on another topic, are you religious or do you follow any spiritual?
No, not specifically. No, I mean I grew up Christian, but I've exposed myself to, Buddhism, Islam, Christianity, a little bit not thinking, but learning more about how people come to beliefs. So I love history. I'm a big history
same
guy. I love reading history and sociology and a bit of psychology and philosophy. But I'm not a religious person. I don't belong to any religious organization.
Have you read any Graham Hancock?
No, I haven't actually. No. British writer.
Yes, yeah.
Sounds familiar. I must say that
he's got some really interesting books, man. Really.
Is he alive? Is he current?
Yeah, he's current. I don't know if you watch Joe Rogan at all.
Yeah, sometimes, a little.
But he's been on Rogan a few times. Let me just check here what the
you say name. Jeff Hancock. Graham
Hancock.
Graham.
Yeah, one of his books. Yeah. So the Fingerprints of the Gods is one of his books.
Oh, of course, yes.
And
I haven't read it, but I know the title. Yeah.
Yeah, so he talks about lots of ancient civilizations. And,
yeah.
I mean, I'm heavy. I love all those kinds of things.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's similar in that way that I find it fascinating that human beings, and not just human beings, but this planet, the nature is it's just so complex and so wonderful. I mean, just taking cannabis as a plant, or even mushrooms. Yet there's so many plants that have got these properties, that we can benefit from, and I mean, if that's the closest thing to religion that I find, is that all the keys to to this life, and the answers that we look for are here. They're not really hidden. They are hidden in some ways, but like if you're questioning earnestly enough, they'll appear, you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
Have you heard
definitely.
of ayahuasca?
Of course, yes.
I don't know if you've,
I've done 2 ceremonies, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, I've got some friends who are like not practicing shamans and stuff, but in South America, they do ceremonies.
Yeah. It was scary. I must be, if I'm going to be completely honest, I thought I was going to die, you know. It was, I wasn't prepared for it. It wasn't something that I'd researched before. I kind of went headlong into something that I didn't know I was going into an ayahuasca ceremony, and I wasn't in a great space emotionally, spiritually. So it was a very scary experience, but I came out of it, and the after effects were beneficial for me. You know, the contemplations afterwards, it showed me how much my mind is controlling my existence. You know. And when I say mind, of course, the mind, we divide it into certain categories, you know, but the subconscious mind, that thing that we kind of just, that autopilot mind is the one that since then I've been more and more looking at how do my thoughts influence my reality, but not just that, where do thoughts come from? And not necessarily to establish exactly where they come from, but are they me, or am I my thoughts, or are they just passing like clouds, you know? So I mean, ayahuasca brought me through a scary experience to a point where I've been more observant and aware of my mind, my thoughts, not to identify with everything that comes into my head. Some of them are scary, you know. Some of the things we can think are like, wow, you can actually even think something so violent or something so radical. But if you identify with it, that's where I guess it becomes tricky, because you don't need to identify with everything that comes through your head, you know. You don't know where these things come from. Could be stimulation, trauma. I mean, there's a dozen reasons why we have certain thoughts, why we think in a certain way, you know.
Check out, if you can find it, there's a book called The Untethered Soul.
The Untethered Soul. Also sounds familiar, actually.
Michael A. Singer, and he talks exactly about these things, about this voice that's constantly going on inside your head, and learning how to actually remove yourself from this place. And
yes.
Who are you, and why are you like telling me this crap? Like,
yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and I've done that so many times. You just take yourself, and it's like, is that me, or like who the hell is thinking this shit here? Like,
yeah,
come on,
exactly.
Man,
exactly. Yeah. Now, socialization is a heavy thing, you know, and the nice thing is, I think, like, you know, we're moving through all these things, and coronavirus has really put the spotlight again on self, you know, for me personally, but I know for many people, you know, it's, we can almost cut ourselves off from many of the things that society claims are important, you know, and, you know, economy is one of them, you know, like, what is economy? It's just an invention, you know. What is society and societal norms and traditions? And I mean, culture, if you just look at culture, I mean, even religion, you know, it's like, where did those stories come from? I can respect them for what they are, but I wasn't there, you know. I wasn't there when those things happened, so I can't take that as my story, you know. Even although you can be socialized in that way, in a religious sense, you know, whether if you're Muslim or Christian or any of the others, you know, it's to be able to look at it like and make up your own mind about something, you know. That's for me is the magic, you know.
Yeah, to be honest, most of the dudes who like those religions are based on probably was saying the same thing. Was like, yo, like, I found this thing, you can do it too. Like, I'm making my own opinion. You don't need to now go and write a book about me and then go and tell everybody that this is how you must live your life. Like, I'm just saying, like, yo, this is inside of you. You know, find your way, search. Like you said, ask yourself those questions. The answers are there, man. They are there.
And I think this is where it comes, I'm going to pull it back to music, because that's what I find is always amazing to me about music, is that music can tell a story without all the symbolism, you know, without all the tradition and dogma, but it can spark a fire in you, you know, because of chordal structure, because of the major and the minor chords. You know, there's something in chords, and again, if you go from Western tuning to Eastern tuning, or should I say, like, how different instruments on different pieces of wood or different strings produce different sound. Sound is one of the most underrated things in modern culture. This is something that maybe one day will more and more come to be used as a means to heal people, to free people from this constraints of economy and all these boring things, you know, capitalism and socialization and politics and, you know, the battle of the sexes. And, you know, I think this is the amazing thing about music, is that you can't see it, but you can feel it, you know, and you can hear it, but there's more. You can not only hear it, it stirs something in you, you know, and this is, that has the ability to shape your life, you know. I mean, one example is, I was thinking about it today, is I've been watching a lot of stuff on atheism versus, again, religion in a sense. And one thing, I enjoy what atheists say more than what I enjoy what religious people say generally. But there's a lot of beautiful things in religion, like art, music, stories, storytelling, symbolism in terms of life lessons and that kind of thing. But one thing that for instance, atheists, the stuff that I've been listening to, wouldn't necessarily be able to explain, or maybe they would, I don't know. But the point is, I was thinking, there were the experiments done by a Japanese professor some years ago. I actually went to one. They came down to the aquarium in Cape Town to have a group of people pray over water and say nice things and bless the water, and then look at a drop under a microscope, you know, and see how the water, you know, takes on a form, you know. And it was quite amazing to actually see that, you know, that water responds to vibration, to sound. And if you pump a certain vibration through a water molecule, or it changes shape, basically, you know. And with that, it was determined that words that you use that are empowering, supportive, loving, get the crystal to look one way, whereas if you shout the anger, you know, the in a violent way, the water molecule changes a different shape, you know. So they were just saying that water has memory, and based on that, like, you need to be conscious about how you talk around anything that contains water, which is everything on this planet, you know, which is quite amazing, because yeah, everything contains water just like we do. So conscious use of words, meaning of words, careful choice of words, because sound is power, you know. And I mean, even those religious books say, it was like, in the beginning was the word, you know, and then, you know, it's like we're talking about sound, and sound is such an underrated thing, you know. I think it's something that we still know quite little about, but there are good markers to get us on the route to see actually that it's quite phenomenal, you know. Sound is incredible, you know. Music is incredible. It's that thing that's unseen, but you can be blissed out.
Says, one good thing about music, when it hits, you feel no pain. But yeah,
beautiful line that.
Oh yes, bro. Oh yes, man. But Brian, you know, just in closing, man, thank you so much for coming.
It's a pleasure, man. Yeah.
Anything that you want to just say before I close up? Or?
No, I mean, great. I'm really, I'm happy to chat. It was actually really nice meeting you face to face like this. And yeah, I'm glad that we met through Ernie, you know, one way or the other that we connected is an awesome thing. Thanks for inviting me. And yeah, one time. I wish you all the best with the music, with recording, and generally with life and family. And so that's all I can say now. Is my message to you, my friend, is yeah, have a blessed life, man. That's all I can say.
Well, hopefully it's I'll be able to see you in person at some point.
That would be nice. Are you visiting the site sometime soon, or maybe next year?
I do plan to. I'm hoping in the next 2 years. I've got 3 kids, man. You know what traveling.
Yeah, I know. I hear you. No, that question was very, like, when I said it, I was like, how the hell is that going to be possible? Young'uns, you know. Yeah.
The last time I was there, I was with 2, and we did go to Cape Town. My grandmother was still alive. She actually passed away this year. Also in LC's and that. But my dad is still there. My dad is there. He lives there still in Cape Town.
Okay.
So we will have to come and visit at some point, hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. No, vice versa. If I ever come that side, you'll be on my list of people.
Of course.
Thanks. And I'm following your show. Well done, and keep it up, man, you know.
Thank you so much, man. Guys, this has been the Other Side of the Sun podcast. I'm the solarkidd. That's Brian DeGoede. Don't forget to like, subscribe. You know the deal. Peace and love.